Hey, everybody. Welcome to the TEConnect podcast. I'm John Martin.
And I'm Dean Reverman.
And I'm James Korte.
Hey!
There you go.
Back again. Finally back to finish off the epic trilogy
Yes.
of creating demand, how to reach your customers in a timely fashion, how to get out in front of them long before we normally do. So yes, James is back. James Korte, of course. If you listen to this podcast at all, you know who James Korte is.
How do they not know at this point?
Yeah, exactly.
You would have to know by
Unless this
point.
is your very first episode, in which case, if it is, this is James Korte. He's kind of our digital marketing guru. He's our marketing guru in general. He knows, probably has forgotten more about marketing than the rest of us will ever know.
No doubt about that.
But hey, we're back with part 3. Well, I'll tell you about the other 2 parts here in a moment. Of a discourse about, based on a book called The Challenge Customer. We're going to get today into more about finding advocates for your business to help you go out and kind of preach your products and services to other people within the company so that you can potentially win some business. We'll explain a little bit more about that, how to maybe do that, some of that demand creation, what we've learned over the years as it relates to content marketing, hint, hint.
Yep.
We'll get into, how to overcome some hurdles when it comes to working with those people, maybe what those people might look like, who the person can be that can be the advocate for your company, how we, who we should or shouldn't be getting in front of.
Yes.
How do we make that person fall in love with us? And once they're ready to fight for us, what do we give them? How do we equip them?
Yes. Yes. We're falling in love?
Falling in love, yes. This episode will actually be out close to Valentine's Day, I think. So there you go.
We're making customers fall
This is
in love
our
with us.
Valentine's episode, how to make your customers
That's right.
fall in love with you.
When did we shoot part 1 of this? How long has this saga been dragging on now?
It's been a while. Like, I don't remember the exact date, but I've got the episode. We're in the 80s in episodes. That was number 45 when we started.
Don't think I've ever taken this long to read a book. It's been a busy 12 months.
You've got some things on your plate.
Yeah, you've had a few things on your plate.
If we decide to do something like this next time or again,
Right.
I'll speed up the process.
We'll wait until you're actually done next time. We just couldn't
That's a
wait.
good idea.
You kept telling us all this cool stuff from the book, so we had to get in here and start recording and talking about it.
Yeah.
But it worked because we found 3 good podcasts we get to make out of it. So
you.
all that plus our usual value to the VAR and what's tech connecting with us. It's time to plug in and get connected.
Welcome to the TEConnect podcast. It's time to get connected.
All right, so hey, again, don't need to give a thorough introduction of James here, but welcome back. I will say though, we haven't really mentioned that at the time when Dean got his promotion
that's
to
a good
VP
point.
of marketing,
Yes.
we bumped up Korte a little bit too.
Yes.
He's kind of taken over our VARCOM program. He's
Yes.
overseeing our MarCom team in general. He's kind of taking your spot to some
Absolutely.
extent,
Yes.
of
Yes.
all the day-to-day stuff you were
Yep.
doing. So
Yep.
congratulations.
Thank you.
Well deserved.
Well deserved.
So now I'm
100%.
sitting here with 2 of my bosses, I guess.
Right.
Yeah.
That's not awkward at all. Yeah, don't worry about it.
Whatever. Still my podcast.
Good. The same respect as always. I love it.
Exactly.
Still mine.
That's how we roll around here. Okay, so we're going to do this conversation today about this idea of finding advocates for your business to help you go to bat, because sure, you can go, everybody wants to be that salesperson that gets to go in and pitch themselves and win the business on their merit and tenacity.
Look what I did.
Right. But let's be honest, it helps when you have people that can help you out. And if those people are within the very company that you're trying to win over, that's even that much better. If it's someone that they respect and will listen to and they understands their business, obviously, because they're within it, that's the kind of person you want to reach out to. But first, let's quickly do a little recap of what we covered in the first 2 pods.
All right.
I am going to put some links in the show notes. If anybody wants to check these episodes out, go back. So episodes 45 and 60 were the first 2 that we did around this topic. The first one was all about how buying groups work. And again, this all came from this Challenger Customer book. I will put a link to that, in the notes as well, where you can buy that. But I think we've kind of covered quite a bit of it in these podcasts. So we read it for you kind of thing, or James read it for all of us. So in that initial one, this whole how buying groups work, we're talking about the idea that most buying groups are 5 to 6 people, and they can represent a wide swath of people from the company. They all kind of come in with their own agendas.
Yep.
The big takeaway that we came up with also was that typically speaking, by the time someone in our world, a reseller, let's say, or an ISV or whatever, gets in front of one of these groups or hears from them or talks to them or finds out that they are interested potentially in their product, they're already more than halfway. The stat was 57% of the way
through their buying process.
through their buying process, which is pretty far. And by the time you then get involved, they've already made some concrete ideas. They've already had a lot of back and forth and banter, and there's probably a lot of things they've already decided they will and won't do. They may shut you out of being able to bring the solution you think you should bring to the table. It may keep you from even getting involved to begin with.
Right. And what the book says is these groups are often somewhat dysfunctional because, as you said, competing priorities or whatever. And it's not.
It's like a family, right? You're
Exactly.
dealing with the family for crying
I
out
want
loud.
this or I want that. And so, the issue is that when they do finally reach out, to your point, John, they've already kind of crystallized some of their requirements.
Right.
And the issue there is there are oftentimes a lowest common denominator of
Right.
what
makes everybody happy.
Yeah, in terms of the business value a solution could provide, they all, okay, we can agree on this.
Right.
Whereas, if you could get in front of them sooner as a supplier, you can help them understand their existing pain, what about their business is flawed, and help convince them that it needs to change and what that change looks like. That ultimately leads to a higher value deal on your end.
Exactly. So then in part 2, we kind of started getting into that. Then how do you get in front of them sooner? And the idea behind that is creating some sort of demand, like putting yourself in a position where you are explaining to them, hey, here's what I understand about your business, your challenges. The idea was this, the kind of the big point is that you're combating the status quo.
Yes, right.
Absolutely.
And most people don't know that something needs to change until someone either tells them that it needs to change or something breaks, basically. And if it's the breaking thing, that's where sometimes you end up finding yourself behind the 8 ball because you're coming in late after they've already, they're scrambling maybe to get something done. They might take the first thing they can find. And again, they might be getting a group of people together that just all have a common denominator that they can, throw out there instead.
And then it becomes about price, right? And you're up against a couple
Exactly.
other competitors who they all view as offering the same product or service,
Right.
which is not ideal. Yeah, and they refer to it as kind of upending the buyer's mental model.
Right.
So we all have a mental model in different aspects of our life, but as it relates to business or work, you believe you understand the factors that are affecting your business, and then they talk about the concept of a commercial insight, or something that's going to break the frame of your mental model and help you understand, like you just said, John, something you didn't either know at all or something you didn't fully appreciate about your business.
Right.
Usually on the negative side.
Right.
Holy smokes, if we were doing this differently, we would be saving this much money or being this much more productive or, whatever that kind of value prop is.
Yeah. And again, it is very hard to approach somebody that has already decided they're looking for something and tell them, well, hey, here's where stuff's broken and we can fix this. If that's not where they are at that point, they're like, that's whatever. Like, I'm not concerned about that. We're just trying to do X, Y, Z.
Right.
And we need X, Y, Z.
Tell us what your price is.
Right. But
Do you have
instead-
these features?
Exactly. If you're getting to them sooner, you're breaking that mental model and you're explaining to them, hey, you may not have thought about this, but this is broken in your business. And then ideally what's happening is they're thinking to themselves, man, they're right. That is kind of broken. I didn't realize that before I saw this, heard this, read this, but they're right. So I guess, that kind of gets us to where we are now with this conversation. Maybe our starting point here, because we kind of started hinting at that, I think, at the end of the last episode, but didn't really have the time to get into it, which is how to create that demand. What kind of content, what are we putting in front of people in order to get them to start thinking about where is things wrong in my business that I didn't know before? And it's something we're good at. We do a lot of this on our AppWare campaign site in particular, where we go out and find pain points and challenges and present content to people about those in the particular industry and in a particular area of their business that they may not be thinking about, but that a solution exists for. We're trying to tell them like, hey, ahead of time, maybe think about this because it could be broken in your business too, right? So let's talk about that a little bit more. What is the approach there? What is the idea behind how to break in, find pain points, and create the demand that will lead us to where we need to go?
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think the key thing that we've believed for quite some time as it relates to the way that we do marketing, but the book, echoed the sentiment, which is it's not about you in the beginning. It's about their current practices. It's about finding a solution generically, independent of who's providing that solution. And it really is about convincing them your status quo is broken, taking them from A to B. So what kind of ammo do you need to support your commercial insight is the way that they would put it. And I think an important point to make about the idea of the commercial insight is that it should uniquely lead back to you.
Right.
So not just that any provider like you or somewhat like you could also deliver on that same promise. So how do you generate that demand? The simple answer is by providing some sort of commercial insight. I'll use a really simple example that came up in the book. They refer to Xerox. We all know who Xerox is. I don't know how long ago this was, But what they realized was, or what their hypothesis was, the hypothesis for their commercial insight was color printing can help improve student performance.
Right.
They felt that, in their bones, so to speak, they felt that was their differentiator between them and a lot of their competitors in the education space. Let's go out and prove it. So they did studies, they did research, they went out and spoke to educators and got testimonial videos. That was the kind of, it was the research they did to, let's be honest, they were confirming their bias on some level.
Right.
They believed it to be true, and they went and created the information that supported it. But in talking to educators and in talking to students, and like I said, doing the research, they did find that there was a lift, so to speak, in educational quality when the prints that, the printouts the students were given were in full color and were of a high quality. But again, in going through that process, they ended up with the content they needed to go and educate the market. They had the testimonials that they could use in video form or in, copy text form on their websites. They had some statistics that were a result of the reports that they could go out and put in media outlets, through press releases or through partnerships with educational, associations and things of that nature. So that's in essence what you need. Generating demand is taking someone who isn't currently thinking about your product category and making them think about it through that, again, frame-breaking idea of going, did you know as a superintendent, as a high-level educator, that your students could be performing better if you were providing them color prints? No, I didn't know that. I didn't think that had anything to do with student performance. You've broken my mental model a little bit, and now I'm thinking, okay, based on this data, and again, this isn't something that happens immediately.
Right.
It's something that happens.
They don't just turn around and say, "I want all the Xerox," Yeah.
Right. It's not at first evidence that people are like, you got my business. Who can provide me this solution?
Yes, I'll take 30. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So this might be something depending on. We talked about this in the previous episode. The burden of proof increases or decreases depending on how kind of mind-blowing your insight is. If it's something where you go, you know what, I didn't know that, but I could understand that being true, which I think might be true for Xerox. Okay, yeah, something's in color, it's high quality. It makes sense to me that might have some impact. But there were other examples of commercial insights where you were like, holy smokes, we're connecting hygienists. I don't know if you guys remember this example.
Yes, yeah.
The Dent Supply,
Their wrist health to profitability in my practice. You got to connect the dots for me. So there's a higher burden of proof. It's going to take longer to convince, a dentist, a doctor of that thing being true. But yeah, that's what demand gen is. Taking someone who isn't looking for your product right now, and then by introducing an idea, they go, okay, there is maybe something flawed about our business practices. Maybe we should reach out to these people and hear a little bit more about what they have to say. And I think, not to fully segue us there, but then it's, okay, so you get a foot in the door, hopefully with the right person, the advocate, or what they call the mobilizer in the book. And then we can get into that in a little bit as far as what that looks like.
Yeah.
Yeah. And kind of parlaying on that, another way that I think about it is, and I was reading up on some of this stuff, is I use the word unteach, right? And let me throw a sentence out at you. Challenger marketing aims to unteach customers something they already know or believe about how their business currently operates. And when you think about it in that realm, right?
Yep.
Commercial insight is one thing, but if you think about it, oh my gosh, you're going to be speaking to an audience now that you're trying to market to. Part of that is unteaching them what they already know or think or believe about how their business operates, because that's the inertia that we talk about. Oh, my business is fine. Why would I want to stop using Excel? to manage assets in my inventory? Well, because it's really bad,
Yeah, you could be saving 12 hours per week. Holy smokes, is that true?
Yeah. So as part of the perspective that I, crystallized in my mind was unteaching, as much as teaching people,
Yep.
Agree. Well, and we've discovered this from our time working on these campaigns and the years that we've been working on them together, that, it's the content itself. There's a bit of a less is more approach to it, but there's also, to your point, again, that idea of if you want someone to be led back to you, it's because you are addressing needs and challenges and pain points that you specifically can fix, and you and only you ideally. So it might mean that maybe you have one small little differentiator from all the other competition, and you want that to be part of it. Maybe it's not the lead, maybe it's not the most important thing, but when we do this content, we're doing like 4 or 5 bullet points that we're saying like, hey, here are the four greatest challenges to your business in XYZ. And that's the title of the content. That's what draws someone in. Everyone loves the list. It's that clickbait type thing that draws people's attention in. and you're going through those 4, and you know for sure that all 4 of these are pain points. But yes, to your point, the most important, biggest one you're spending the most time on is the one that's your differentiator. Right. And so then when they finally get to the end of all that, and they're like, yeah, that's right. And then you're also softly suggesting like, hey, a solution like XYZ, not even necessarily calling yourself out yet, but a solution that does this, a software and a hardware combination that does this, could help with these problems. Here's how it helps with those 4 problems. And then at the end, you're going, and oh, by the way, company XYZ is the person that you want to talk to about all this. We have the expertise in this. But you'll notice, again, it's all about that kind of soft pedal. It's that soft sell. It's not being aggressively advertising. It's not again, if someone is downloading a piece of content and a brand's on it or something, they're not dumb. They know that there's kind of an advertising aspect there. But ideally, they start reading through this content, whatever it is. And, in our case, we do a lot of ebooks. And as they're reading through it, they go, yeah, okay, yeah, they're right. Yeah, they know about this. Yeah, that is a pain point for me. Oh, that does sound interesting. That does sound like an interesting way to do that. And they're kind of forgetting that they're being kind of advertised to along the way. Right. And then they get to the end and that piece is there. And it's not overly, again, not aggrandizing, not like, call right now or do this right now or we're the best at this. It's just more of a, hey, by the way, if you are looking for this, we can help you out.
We're the ones who can uniquely provide it.
Right.
Yep.
It's just all about going back to the previous, episodes, that idea of getting in front of these people before they're in this process of making these decisions, ideally before they even know they need to be thinking about it. So at least your name and your brand and what you know and your expertise is out there in front of them, so that then later on, when they come across you at a trade show, when you reach out to them in other ways, when you're, nurturing, whatever lead you got out of them for checking out that content, they know who you are, they understand your business, and they know that you know something about them. So they tend to be a little bit more receptive to having that conversation. For sure. And I think that's what leads us to then finding the people that you need to find, because those are ideally going to be the people that are reading this content, right?
Absolutely. So. And I just want to add real quick, John, to your comments. One of the things we found in the marketing we've done, collaboratively with our partners, is that sometimes your kind of unique angle on a market, on a technology type, is who you solve the problem for.
Right.
Hey, there's a lot of people. Let's use RFID as an example. There's a lot of people that can help you track assets more effectively, count inventory or assets more quickly, but we do it for manufacturing companies in plastic. Do you know what I mean? Well, what do you mean? Tell me more. What's different about, okay, so these guys say they do it for 800 different industries, but you say you do it for us. Tell me more. What do you know about me, or what's different about your platform that makes it, kind of custom built for me? So I think that kind of angle is important. And then I just wanted to also add that oftentimes the supplier company that is viewed as evangelizing the category, not their brand specifically, but they're doing marketing to say, hey, RFID is a solution to these very specific problems. If you were the one educating the market on the need for your category, not your brand, but your category, you're often viewed as the leader because you're spending all the time convincing. It's Tesla's the obvious example in the electric vehicle space. They spent all of the, well, I don't even know how much money they spent. They've done a really great job of not doing a lot of advertising. People do their advertising, which is another segue into what we're going to talk about next. But they are seen as the leader because they were the ones that went out there first and said, hey, this is the future. So yeah, to your point now, again, they refer to the people you're trying to reach in these organizations as the mobilizers or the advocates. And the key, I think, about them, the thing that stood out from the book about these people, is they are the ones willing to fight, not for you, supplier A, they're willing to fight for an idea.
Right.
So that's why it's important that you're not overtly or overly brand, specific when you approach these people through your marketing. It really is about, to these types of people, and they classify mobilizers, and we talked about this in the earlier series, I think. There's all different types of, I don't exactly know how they phrased it, but types of people
buyer
within organizations.
Types or, profiles, customer profiles.
And I believe the 3 that mobilizers are most likely to be are teachers, skeptics, and go-getters. And they kind of explained how, the go-getter is all about, yes, improving the business outcome, but kind of also making it look good on them as being the person that said, hey, look what I found. This is going to help us in this kind of way. And they're a little bit, I think the go-getter ones, when there was a little bit less worried about all the details in the upfront. Hey, this looks cool. Let me mobilize this idea within my
Right.
organization, and we'll figure everything out later.
I
Whereas
want to be the first person to talk about it, but I'm not going to know all the details.
yeah,
I'll
we'll
leave
worry
to other
about that
people.
later.
Right.
And I think it was the teacher that was kind of the opposite. They're also interested in bringing ideas to the table, but they want to know everything up front in terms of, T's crossed, I's dotted. And then the skeptic is exactly what they sound like. They're here for great ideas, but they're skeptical. They want you to explain the business value and really go deep before they're going to be willing to fight for you. But they'll definitely go fight throughout their organization.
Right.
And that's the concept of the challenger customer. The mobilizer is that person that if my effective marketing, the commercial insight, I've upended or untaught them, and I've convinced them, they're going to go sell the rest of that 5 to 6 person buying group on our behalf. But they need our help along that journey, right? And that's kind of where we come into what was referred to as a mobilizer kit. So on one hand, we created all this great content to attract a mobilizer. And now that we've attracted them, we've convinced them through our storytelling that, hey, this category, this type of solution is really what we need because it addresses a specific issue that we have that, again, maybe we didn't fully realize before we were confronted with this information. Now I'm going to go and spread the gospel, throughout my org, through finance and IT and everybody else and say, hey, this is a problem we have. We all can agree on it, right? Yeah, we can kind of agree on it, but someone's going to have an issue. At that point, it becomes our job. And quite honestly, it's kind of where marketing hands off to sales a bit. Marketing has done their demand gen job. We've got someone on the hook on some level. They've reached out, they've raised their hand, they've downloaded a piece of content. Maybe they've asked for a demo or whatever. We're aware of them at this point. Now marketing goes, all right, sales, it's on you, but here's what you're going to need.
Right.
And so marketing continues to create content, but it's really holding hands with sales and saying, hey, what do we understand about the buying process? What kinds of objections are going to come from this group of people? What does finance and IT and everybody else care about? Let's go and create the diagnostic tools that we can, as a group, they can get together and kind of debate it out. And that was another really interesting part that they explained was the salespeople that they've referred to as core performers, not the high performers, but like the core ones, would try to avoid the debate because they were worried the deal was going to fall apart. Whereas the really high performing sales reps would say, these conversations have to happen.
Yeah.
If on the other end,
they're challenging. Yeah.
exactly. If we're going to come out of the other end with a high value deal, I need to try to facilitate these conversations. I might not be right in the middle of it, sitting at the table, but let me put my mobilizer in the spot and give he or she the ammo they need to go and make the case. So, that was the kind of concept of that mobilizer kit. And, I think it would vary what that would look like, what kind of ammunition they would need, but I thought that was a pretty cool concept.
Yeah, I agree.
So there's a couple things
Yeah.
that you
Do some
that you were
unpacking
talking-
there.
Can we do a little bit of unpacking on some of that
As
stuff?
Dee loves to say, yes.
Right, absolutely. So, and I don't know if we'll get into this, but let's talk about let's stay with now. You have to educate your mobilizer, right? And we delineated that there's 3 types of people, and they're teachers, the skeptics, or the go-getters. To me, those are different audiences, right?
Yeah.
Those
And you approach them differently
personality types are
Yeah.
going to react differently to information. I mean, a go-getter is probably going to be a little less on the facts. Just give me the high level stuff. Maybe it's just the glossy whatever ebook that has the graphs and stuff like that would probably do. But a teacher, they're probably going to want like a white paper, right? They're going to want more information to, oh, wait a minute, I got to understand what we're talking about here at a more granular level. So let's dialogue about that. I mean, are we creating content to feed all of those personalities?
Good point. I mean, so what I would say is,
And I don't mean we as in BlueStar. I mean,
as an advertiser.
if we're a marketer,
Right,
is that are we putting that on our to-do list? Okay, we want to go after the mobilizers, but we're going to have to tweak. We know what the message is or whatever, but now we're going to have to kind of tweak it to feed because we don't know who's going to react to it, right?
I would say, and again, just my opinion, that the marketing message could be the same for those people.
Right.
Because they're going to hear it and go, there is value here.
Right.
And then when you connect with them, I think it's that process. It's the go-getter. And I was kind of trying to figure out which one of these I am. I think I'm the one that once I recognize that there might be value for us here, I'm quick to go and say, hey, Dean, hey, John, without all of the questions answered. So for me, let me go and do my thing. But we're all going, no matter if it's the teacher who goes, okay, I'm interested, but walk me through this.
Right.
Or the skeptic who says, I'm interested, but I'm sure that there's something you didn't tell me that is going to unravel this whole thing.
Yep.
So I think it's the initial conversation between the salesperson and the mobilizer before they're willing to go and fight for you or fight for the idea. They're not fighting for you yet. They're fighting for the idea because, who knows, something falls apart and they're like, this wasn't the right supplier, this one is.
Right.
So that's my take on it, is the quickness or how slowly they're going to be willing to go and have that conversation depends on who they are. So it might be, like I said, they reach out and maybe it's a couple of weeks with the skeptic or the teacher before they go, okay, now I feel comfortable that when I go and get excited in a meeting and Dean asks me a bunch of good pointed questions and I go, oh gosh, I don't know any of those things. The go-getter's not so worried. We'll figure it out. Let me go back and learn, but I'm sure there's something here.
They're fishing. The go-getter's fishing. They're throwing out a concept, an idea, seeing what the reaction is.
Waiting for people to shoot holes in it.
Exactly.
Yeah, we'll figure it out as a team.
Whatever. But maybe from a marketing perspective, knowing that you have these different audiences should be a part of your strategy, meaning maybe your seminal piece and going out and attracting people, your clickbait is the ebook or whatever, but if you develop that, maybe you should have a little bit more information behind it, because once you attract somebody like a teacher, well, that the teacher's going to now look for a white paper or a case study or some other material to kind of back whatever the initial message was, right?
Great point, because maybe those people wouldn't reach out to you in the same way a go-getter who gets excited, they're willing to talk to somebody or email with somebody. So
or maybe it's some blog post that you've pre-developed, to you get yourself in the mind of the teacher. What would, okay, so we've pitched this, but what's the granularity that person might be kind of looking for?
You're interested about RFID, but what about the cost?
Yes.
Read more about achieving ROI, and it's a really good point. It's a fantastic point.
Yeah. As someone who, I feel like I kind of fall somewhere between the role of teacher and skeptic myself. Like, I can be very skeptical at first about whatever. You're just trying to sell me something that I don't really need. But then if I'm on board with something,
nightmare, that's who you are.
Yeah, exactly. or if I'm someone who was more interested in the beginning, I tend to be the teacher type, because I'm also the type who does a lot of research before I'll buy something. I'm the person who will spend hours looking through all different types of cars from different companies before finally walking into a dealer and saying, I want to test drive that.
Right.
And, and again, it's that, we're getting back to that point where the salesperson doesn't necessarily know that or think about that, or they're not asking the right questions to identify what I am, because if they did, they would realize, all right, I don't have to start with the basics with this person. They've already done a lot of the research and work to get here to even have this conversation. But I honestly think the skeptic type, if that's the person you can find, could be the absolute most valuable one, because typically, if you're getting one of these buying groups together and you're bringing someone in who is the skeptic, and let's be honest, there's almost always one in every buying group.
People know who they are.
Yeah, people know exactly who they are, which means that if they're the person that are the most readily on board or are advocating this, that's going to make a stronger impression on the rest of that group than anybody else. Because if it's the go-getter, everyone expects them to be like, oh yeah, I'm excited, this is awesome.
You're the hype train. You're always coming through with some cool idea that's going to cost us a bunch of money and might have value.
Everyone knows that person too. But if it's the skeptic that you've brought on board and they come in and they're going, yeah, I think there's some legs to this. I see some value in this. We probably need to talk about some other things, but here's where I think this can actually make a difference. They're going to listen to that person and go, wow, they got John on board, and he's usually all against everything we try to do.
I'm going to call out somebody else at BlueStar. I think if Jeff Straley walked into an executive board meeting and said, guys, I found this, or someone else brought it to my attention and we need this, people are going to go, if you've convinced Jeff, then we probably need this. We probably ought to just cut the check.
Exactly.
But from a marketing perspective, I think it's important to understand in that to a certain degree. Now, what do you do about it? I'm putting my VAR hat back on. If I have a small marketing ability, if you will, maybe one or two people at it. I'll throw this on the table, that maybe you're the one creating the masterpiece, if you will, but leverage vendor information to help maybe continue to paint the picture of whatever the solution is, or what to feed into the education of the skeptic or the teacher. You don't have to be out on an island where you're creating it all. Consider the partners that are in your ecosystem. What do they have that you can put on your website, put on your landing page, promote socially or whatever to back kind of the overall story, right?
Right. And that's very much what we do in our marketing. It's not just because let's, as an example, when we go out to do one of our campaigns, one of our content campaigns, we usually go to the person that the partner that is going to be like the first main touch point, the ones who are kind of chasing the leads, and we'll always ask them like, hey, fill out this form. with details about your product or your solution and what it does. And they'll do that. But that's not the gospel of the whole thing. We don't just take that copy paste, stick it in an ebook
Right.
and run with it. Because we know from our end, like, all right, you got to have more to the story than just this. So we take that, we go out and do maybe some of our own research into this market and into their pain points and needs, find stats. That's something we've become a big fan of, is some eye-catching statistics that can pop off the page, because that can be something that maybe gets the go-getters excited or
right,
whatever. Like, oh man, they say that like implementing this software reduces
40% reduction.
improves,
Right,
reduces what time wasted by 40% or something. That's amazing. So it's all that little stuff you piece together, where you're ideally, whatever you're putting out there in the world to try to attract attention and create this demand, as we keep talking about, should be something that sort of addresses all three of those buyer types in some way. Like, there's going to be some teaching elements to it where you're kind of explaining things a little bit to the person that wants a little more depth. There's going to be the eye-popping stuff that jumps off the page for the go-getter. And then there's also going to be maybe some stuff that addresses the skeptic of like, if you don't think that it's important to have this, here's a case study from another customer.
Just like you.
Who implemented this and how it improved their system, or their service, their business, their output.
That's right.
That's the kind of stuff I think if your content is trying to address all of those at once in at least small little ways, that's the hook you're giving to each one of them. So to the point you made earlier of how do we go after each one of these people when we don't know who exactly is picking up on this? Ideally, you're giving all of them a little something, and then in your in-depth conversations, your nurturing process, your outreach, and as you grow a conversation, you learn more about who they are and figure out what their type is if you don't already know for some reason.
Yep.
If we're lucky enough to have salespeople listening to us right now, or when we publish, I'll bet there are some that are saying either, oh yeah, I know when I have someone reach out to me because marketing's done a good job or because sales on the outbound has done a good job, I do notice if someone seems like they're excited and they're willing to go and fight for us, or the people who are more skeptical, people who need a little bit more information, but they just haven't had the words to it. Or maybe I just think being aware that the people who are going to reach out to you are likely to fit in one of these boxes is going to help you.
Yep.
So maybe when you get a go-getter on the line and you're like, this person's really excited, this is awesome, this is great for me, maybe on the sales side is when you kind of not pump the brakes, but go, okay, let me give this person a couple pieces of ammunition to take with them so that they don't get caught, being the opposite of the skeptic. Where people, again, you come in the room and it's something every quarter that you're excited about.
Right.
Let's, this time when they come to the meeting, they come to the table, let's have them have a little something to go, and here's the answer to the question I know you have, and here's the answer to the question I know you have. I'll deal with the rest of you later, but let me get you two on board with me.
Or ask those questions. It's okay to, when you're talking to that person, to ask them like, hey, who else is going to be part of this process?
Absolutely.
Who are you going to have to convince to do this? If you're on board with this and you like it and you think it's a good thing, what happens next? Like, I'm assuming you're not the one that gets to make that decision right now, or it's not just your decision. Who else are you going to be talking to? And I guarantee you, again, if you just have a free-form conversation with them and most people are willing to kind of spill a little bit. They'll be like, oh, well, I got to bring in my VP and my finance person. My finance person is going to completely just complain about the price on everything. It doesn't matter what it is. He's going to complain. That should immediately be, you're writing it down going, all right, I got to send something about how price factors in and how, even if this is more expensive than all my competitors, it's going to save them so XYZ money.
Right.
We've done all the background work. So yeah, it's just asking some questions, getting some details. Don't just assume because that person called you and said, I'm excited about this. They're like, yes, I can't. Let's schedule a meeting and get in front of your board and have a talk about it, because that's going to blow up in your face
Let's
pretty fast.
exclude anybody else who might have an objection and just focus on this excited person. Yeah, it's not the path. And salespeople know that. I will say that this final portion of the book, not that I didn't already have a deep respect for the difficulty of the sales role, especially in an enterprise, situation, but man, marketing's tough. So is sales though. And then the last topic, I guess, or one of the last topics we wanted to discuss was the idea of buyer signals. Right. And again, I have never really been in sales outside of, doing some telemarketing, in high school and college days and stuff like that, but they used ADP as an example, and the workforce company or whatnot, and how they have actions a seller can take. And the idea was that a lot of companies focus on what can we do to push the deal. And of course, that's an important thing to consider. But the other concept they introduced was that of buyer signals, that you should be looking for what that mobilizer is telling you.
Right.
And ultimately, the ultimate goal is to have that person tell you, we acknowledge that we're doing something wrong that needs to change. And if you can align on that, then sure, there's still features and benefits and pricing to work through. But if you've done that, then you're in a good spot in terms of having, disrupted a mental model, gotten someone to look at the world and their business from the perspective you want them to look at it. So yeah, that's kind of where they left things. So you get in front of people through smart marketing, and then once you get them on the hook, you find that mobilizer who's willing to go fight for the good idea.
Yeah.
So
well, and I'll say that as someone who's been in sales a decent chunk of my life, and it's never. Let's put it this way: I'm a better marketer than I am a salesperson. always have been, always will be. But of the myriad different types of trainings and sales, pitches and the types of ideologies of sales that you're going to find, because there's a million different ones out on the market. You can find millions of different books that'll teach you how to be the perfect salesperson. One of the things that you find pop up most often is don't be afraid to ask for the business. And in my experience, there's been a lot of people that I've known when I was in sales management, it was a hard thing to train people sometimes that when they got to the point where they were getting those buyer signals, when it was pretty clear that the person they were talking to was sold and invested, and they had a hard time just that one little hurdle of saying, okay, well, can we move forward with this? Are you ready for me to send you an invoice? Are you ready, to talk to my order person or something, or cut a PO for us? Just that simple ask can be the most terrifying thing for someone in sales to realize, because that's the point where you either win or you lose.
Right.
And no one wants to lose. They all want to win, but everyone's so scared of losing that they're afraid
asking.
of they delay that asking, or they continue to pile stuff on. Well, then we can also do this, and we can do that, and we can do this, and the person's like, I'm ready here. I'm done. And then potentially I don't know that you'd push them away necessarily, but at least you're delaying that, and maybe you're delaying it to a point where someone else gets to come in and kind of throw a wrench in the deal and stop it from happening. So,
or you start offering incentives and things you didn't need to offer, and you erode the quality of the deal.
Exactly, yeah. So, so when you get those signals, don't be afraid to do something about it. That's if there's anything I learned in sales, it was that. It was don't be afraid to do something about it.
Recognize when you've really got somebody on the hook.
Yeah.
Absolutely, which is why I think the challenger in this model does the best, right? Yeah. Because to me, a challenger is going to ask that question, and then move on. If there's nothing here, I'm moving on to the next one. I'm going to challenge the next company and try to get the next deal, as opposed to, a problem solver or some of the other people that they have, quantified here, where, yes, they're going to, I think, they're interested in it, and they'll just keep it along, keep it along.
And they keep dragging the deal out for another 6 months until it just dies.
Absolutely. Yeah. So what's the concept around this mobilizer kit then? What's the idea there, where we're trying to arm people within, now that you found your mobilizer, because this is, and you're kind of transitioning it over to sales, right? We kind of left it that you want to arm sales with some information. Is that the kit? Is that what we're talking about here? We want to give sales the tools that they need, that when they have the question, or, because oftentimes I was in sales, I'd ask for the order. So what's preventing us from moving forward? And then they would tell you, well, here's all the issues that I'm dealing with. I got to convince this guy or whatever it is.
Yeah, they're invested, right? The mobilizer, if you've done all of these steps perfectly, they're invested. They want this to happen like you do, because they want to see the value in the business. And so, I would imagine for more mature companies, they probably have a pretty darn good idea of the roadblocks they run into. But for newer businesses, or with new products and whatnot, I think you're exactly right, Dean. You've got someone on the other side, of the email, of the phone, or whatever, who's going to give you the information that you need in order to map that journey and say, okay, in a typical deal, not that it's always going to go the exact same way, here are the big objections we run into. And then it is creating, in the same way that we said in the upfront, you need to create your case studies, your testimonials, your product videos that show exactly what the platform can do. On the other end, it's the same. It's what are the reports, the diagnostic tools, the things like that are for the different departments that basically address exactly what their issue is. And maybe they're not going to be happy with the information, but you at least provide it so that there's clarity, so a decision can be made.
Well, and again, I think if you just ask that question of who else are you going to have to put this in front of, and what do you anticipate their reactions and questions being? And if they'll tell you what that stuff is, and then you'll be like, okay, here's the stuff I'm going to give you to help out with those. Oh, that one's going to be concerned about price. Here's that. This one's going to be concerned about the time for implementation. Here's how we will help out with that. Just give them that information.
Sorry, I was just going to say quickly, we talked about this once before, but it's facilitating the difficult conversations. That is what the high-performing sales reps walk right into. Whereas, the core performers say, oh gosh, what if we facilitate this conversation, it goes horribly bad and we lose the deal? Well, then to your point, you move on to the next one. There's no deal to be had. These conversations have to happen in order for you to come out the other end, ultimately, again, with what you're looking for, which is a high quality deal, not a lowest common denominator.
And in this whole mix, we have to understand the fact that marketers need to have a good relationship with sales so that you can get some of this feedback loop true, right?
Yep,
I mean,
absolutely.
as you go through the process, you're not on the front line like a sales, if you're a marketer, you're not on the front line like the sales rep is that's dealing with these. You need to understand what those roadblocks are so that now you can either develop pieces around it or educate the team on, oh, you're going to hit this roadblock, use this piece of information or whatever, or develop it around that. That's why that's really kind of critical, right, to have that relationship.
Absolutely. And to build on that, one thing I've heard a lot of smart marketing people say as well is speaking to your closed lost accounts. Easier said than done, but if you can find a way to get those people on an email or on the phone to go, hey, understood that we lost the deal. Can you help me understand why? And some of them are going to never respond to your email, but man, what great information you could have there to say, yeah, we were all on board, but you were missing a key feature.
Right. And
What are you
again,
gonna
a
do?
lot of salespeople are terrified to do that, or they have a chip on their shoulder, like, well, I didn't get their business, screw them, I'm off.
Right.
I'm going to go somewhere else and do my job.
it
Like,
personal,
no,
right?
talk to that person. Find out, like, hey, I thought we did a pretty good job at selling you on this, but we didn't get the business. Tell me what went wrong. Where did we fall short?
And maybe it's something then that you take back to product, the product team.
Right.
That's one of the things over the last couple of years I've thought of being obviously, not obviously, sales and marketing need to be in lockstep, but marketing and product. When we are talking about like a software platform or something like that, to say, hey, this is what marketing and sales is running into. We keep losing deals to this competitor. They love us up until the point where they realize that we're missing this. Can we go build this and address this issue?
Right.
Or maybe it isn't a feature. It is something else in the financing options or whatever. And you can make adjustments. And then I think that's how you continue to kind of iterate on that mobilizer kit, creating the new content that addresses known issues.
Yeah, right.
Talk to people.
Exactly. All right. Well, I think we have finally wrapped up the Challenger customer.
No way.
Long time coming.
Stay tuned for our next trilogy with James Korte. This has been fantastic. I think this has been a good deep dive. Like I said, if you really want the full picture here, go back, find the previous episodes, listen to all three of them back to back at the back, and you might find the full comprehensive picture here. Or go out and get the book also. We get nothing out of this, but there's a reason why we're doing this. This was one of those books. You mentioned you're kind of the go-getter type. You started reading this book, and immediately we're firing off emails and messages to everybody like, man, I've been reading about this thing, and it sounds cool like this, and I think there's a really cool thing here.
So much data.
And we immediately like, well, I think we need to do a podcast around this because clearly you're excited about it. So let's talk about it with folks. So
one of the things I loved is just how many charts and graphics and diagrams they had. They really illustrated a lot of their key points, which was pretty cool. Yeah, I would recommend going and checking it out.
there you go. Well, again, I'll put the link to that in the show notes if you want to check out the book for yourself as well as the previous episodes. Hey, before we wrap things up, as always, we want to thank our TEConnect sponsors. So a big thanks to DataLogic, Elo, Epson, Honeywell, Intel, and Zebra. Thank you so much for your support of the show. We appreciate you. As always, if you want to connect with us, first of all, if you're watching on YouTube, hit the like button, smash the subscribe button to subscribe to our channel. You're going to find all kinds of cool video content that we do on a regular basis, but you'll always be notified of new episodes of the podcast. If you listen on any podcaster of your choice, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, whatever, any way that you can leave a review or a rating of some sort, please do that for us. And of course, if you want to reach out to us, if you have thoughts about the topics today, if you want a little more in-depth information, I'm always happy to put you in touch with James if need be. So you can reach out to us on Twitter at TEConnect Pod. Wait, try saying that 10 times fast.
Yeah, really.
Or you can email us, TEConnect@BlueStarInc.com. All right, let's, as always, wrap things up with value to the VAR and what's tech connecting with us. So I got the value of the VAR thing here. I think is a pretty simple one for all of us to answer at once here, which is, how does BlueStar help out in this process when it comes to this idea of demand marketing and creating demand and getting people in front of people before they're deep into a buying process or before they even realize there's an issue going on in their business? How do we help out with that? James, I'll let you start.
I'll put it in these terms because there's a lot of different angles to tackle this from. We are aligned strategically with our VARs and ISVs goals. We want the same things they do. Right. We want them to close new business. When it makes sense for us to be involved from the hardware standpoint, we want to be involved. That's why these programs exist. So The pitch I always give is you can go and find any number of great marketing companies and agencies out there that are making a living and are somewhat expensive in some cases, somewhat affordable in others. I don't know that our partners are going to find a better mix of capability and cost. We're not trying to make money off of our partners. We're trying to make money with our partners through selling hardware and them selling their softwares and services and all of those good things. So the last thing I'll say is the biggest outage I've noticed that's common across a lot of partners that I've worked with is is content, having the content, having the videos, the testimonials, the case studies. We can help create that stuff through our VARCOM program, through our Appware program. We will go out and help you shoot those case study videos from peers of your ideal customers that are then golden in terms of marketing content. Right. So check us out, BlueStarInc.com, VARCOM program, and Appware program. We'd love to work with you guys.
Yeah. And I'd say even more importantly also, we will help you find the people to build solutions with if you need it. Mm-hmm. So if you are very good at one thing, let's say you're a software company. You're like, hey, I've got an amazing software solution, but I know I need hardware. I know I need services to go along with it. Let us know if you don't already have an ecosystem built around that. We'll be happy to help you put that together and make that happen and introduce you to the right people. So don't hesitate to reach out to us, because if you've got a great idea and you know your market and you know you're ready to go out and win some business, but you just don't have all the tools that you need, again, come to us. We'll make it happen for you.
Yeah, it's really well said, both of you. It's what is a value-added distributor? A value-added distributor adds value to the chain. And one of the things that BlueStar invests in that makes us unique is marketing. The resources that we have behind it, the skill set that we have behind it, we're going to be unlike any other partner that you have come across. And I know that's a bold statement, but I truly believe it. Yep. Nobody else approaches the marketplace as a distributor like we do. The partnership is there. We're trying to enable the ecosystem to grow business, to go out there and find net new. So that's what it's all about. Yep.
There you go. I agree. All right, well, let's wrap things up as always with our favorite fun little segment, What's Tech Connecting with Us? This is where we get to talk about something in the world of science, tech, innovation that has caught our eye, has our attention, we're interested in reading about, maybe we're excited to see happen, or our concern might doom the planet to a fiery death. Who knows? I feel like those end up being mine more often than not.
Yes.
So, James, I'll let you start. What's Tech Connecting with you?
I've got two quick ones.
Sure.
So I learned last night on LinkedIn from a guy from an enterprise SaaS company called Metadata, shout out to Metadata, that Bing ads, which I've never touched in my life, because do people use Bing? It turns out 34% of the PC market uses Bing. They own 34% of the PC computer user.
Bing's a Microsoft product, isn't it?
Yeah. Correct.
Yeah. So I imagine preloaded, yeah.
Guess what other outlet Microsoft owns? Plenty, I'm sure.
Well, yeah.
LinkedIn.
Oh, that's
you
right.
can target people on Bing ads using their LinkedIn data.
Interesting.
I did not know that. For anyone out there who hasn't heard me ramble on about LinkedIn, it is a fantastic targeting tool for B2B.
Right.
So it was one of those moments where I went, wow, I've never thought about using Bing ads. I didn't think anyone used it.
Yeah.
34% isn't 70%.
We're Mac users, right?
Right.
Yeah.
But still, 34% of the PC market shares a significant amount of people, and I can use their LinkedIn profile data to target them. Pretty powerful. Maybe worth looking into.
Nice.
My second one, really quickly, it's on the Web3 front, which trying to learn, I'm following people on Twitter that are, obsessed. But the idea, it's basically decentralized everything, right?
Okay.
Web3 is putting more power in the hands of the creators, the content creators, et cetera. So the idea is decentralized social. This is the concept. Instead of Twitter or LinkedIn or Facebook owning the content that we create, especially, again, when I say we, the people out there that have millions of followers or thousands of followers, the idea would be that you own your own feed. It's on the blockchain and what have you. But the idea then would be that any number of developers could create their own Twitters that would feature everyone's content. But again, the ownership of that content sticks with the creator. So if you're Elon Musk and people are hanging off your every word, Twitter doesn't own that whole thing.
Right.
Elon owns his content, and then there could be, instead of just being one Twitter, there could be 200 Twitters developed by different people, and there are more options. So, a lot of it's
interesting.
It's still a little,
It's a little nebulous at this point.
That's
still.
the word I was searching for. Thank you, John. But it's interesting as a concept
Right.
where it's not, and as an advertiser, I thought about that too, where I'm like, okay, so if Twitter and Facebook and LinkedIn don't own the audience and therefore all their data, it becomes a little bit more difficult, but so be it. The world changes. And I think it would be a good thing if that's where ultimately we got to.
Yeah, you've mentioned that to me as a concept before that we could probably tackle here on the podcast. It's one of those things like we need to find the right person that can talk about it because I've done the reading and I kind of look at it and go, I get it, but I also don't get it.
It's kind of where I am too. And that's why I'm like biting it off piece by piece and going, okay, what could it mean for this or for finance or whatever? And
so maybe somebody can help us dumb it down to the simplistic version.
Yeah, and the hard part I'm having about that is the true social part of it. I mean, I think a lot of reasons why people get into social media is to connect with their friends. And now I'm talking about, more specifically Facebook or something like that. But I mean, how does that mirror into that?
So people would build that framework. They'd build Facebook.
Yeah.
But there would be lots of different ones.
Okay,
so it wouldn't be the
Right.
one. But to your point, and I think that's the part that maybe it's because it's our generation where I'm like, well, but everyone's on Facebook.
Right.
And I think the younger generation is like, well, that's part of the problem.
Right.
I only want to deal with these
to break
people.
that,
But in order to be anywhere, I got to be on Facebook. And so, it's
Yeah.
democratizing the platform ownership. So on the individual
Which
level.
conceptually I love.
Yeah, more people, if so to speak, the content feeding into Twitter wasn't owned by Twitter. It was owned by each individual. And then that content could show up on multiple different platforms that different people could go out and build and monetize in their own way or whatever. Yeah, like I said, it's still nebulous. Thanks again for the support on the word, John. But it's interesting. Conceptually, I'm interested to see if anything ever comes of it.
Right. Yep. All right, Dean,
Well,
let's take
that feeds into one of mine. I got two of them too. So this is actually bad news. I think what you just proposed is bad news for what my headline: TikTok stars are out earning CEOs.
Wow.
Did you? So
I believe
TikTok. Are you aware of these D'Amelio sisters on TikTok?
I've heard because one of them's got a TV show now or something. Don't they? Or I don't know.
Okay, well they're
I'm on
making
TikTok, but I haven't actually come across that.
ton of
I'm fine with
money. Yeah, they raked in about $18 million last year alone. Just being. So I asked, my kids. So who? And of course they know immediately who it is. I'm like, so what do they do? Well, they dance. They open things on TikTok, and it's like, and so I watched a couple of the videos, and like she's reorganizing her makeup drawer and stuff like that. That's worth $18 million apparently. And then you got. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to make the point that when younger people talk about content creation, that's what they mean.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's I mean, it is. It is content, right? But for me, it was almost. Of disrupting my mental model. When I think about content, it's like it's something you got to sit down and work on and create.
Right.
Here's the PDF or here's the video, and it's like, no.
No,
I mean,
it could literally just be somebody turning on their phone camera and just randomly recording something they were doing that day.
So Charlie,
And millions of people view it and like it and comment on it.
Absolutely. So Charlie made more than the ExxonMobil CEO, more than the CEO for Starbucks. I mean, it's just the line is just yeah. And then then they mentioned the second highest paid person on TikTok. So anyway, so that's bad news for TikTok, right? I mean, how do you monetize it, or how do you, if it's not a channel anyway? I guess we'll see how that all pans out.
Wow.
But the other one that's tech connecting with me, because I've talked about him before, it's this Revel, the Russian group.
Yeah.
Well, apparently Russia says that they arrested 14 people associated with that prominent hacker attack group, if you will, and now they're disbanded. These are the people
So they
that
can
are
just take on a different name and start all over again.
These are the people who are responsible for that Microsoft Exchange hack that affected 30,000 U.S. organizations.
They're patsies.
Yes. So do we believe that they're gone,
not even remotely.
or was that just kind of like a little shell game thing?
Yeah,
Are they
exactly.
really in the gulags or whatever in the middle of Siberia?
No, come on.
Russia would never give those people up. Let's be honest. Neither would we if we had.
Exactly. No, not even remotely.
Well, anyway, this story was all around how the big game hunter has been neutralized and all this stuff.
Right.
Okay, so we're
I
not
did not
believing
see
it.
that. That's interesting.
Yeah. What's that connecting with you, John?
So mine's gonna be fairly simple, and by the time this episode comes out, it may already be like
it's a
yesterday's
flash in the pan?
news.
Yeah.
Maybe it actually already is because I came into it late. Are any of you playing Wordle?
No.
Yes.
So
Once.
so Wordle is just this very simplistic word game that is all the rage right now.
Just
you may
on the
have,
web.
if you're on Twitter, you may have seen this because people love to post their scores there, which will look like little blocks of yellow and green and gray blocks.
Okay.
Is all that you're posting, and basically it's a simple little word puzzle where you get 6 tries to guess a 5-letter word.
Ah, okay, got it.
So if you just get I think if you just Google Wordle, it's only on the web. It's only through a browser. Like there are apps out there, but they're all like either illegal or copycat stuff or whatever. And I think Apple's been taking them down too.
Gotcha.
Very simplistic. So basically, again, you get 5 guesses every time that you guess a word. If the letter is in the word but not in the right place, it'll highlight it yellow. If it's in the word and in the right place, it'll highlight it green. And if it's not in the word, it goes gray. And your little keyboard icon goes gray for it also.
Okay.
So you get these 5 tries to just figure out what the word is from those context clues. It's really not that difficult if you know words. And again, it's 5-letter words. It's not that super hard to do, but it is oddly addicting. But only one new puzzle goes up every day. So it's basically you do one, you get your score,
right?
you can go brag about it and share it, how quickly you got it or didn't get it or whatever.
Got
and then you got to wait until the next day for a new puzzle.
Got it.
So is the word
very
unique for different people, or it's the same word for everyone?
I think it's the same for everybody.
Because I was like, I could totally go ruin this for everyone. Not that I would ever
could,
do
you're
that,
right,
but I
yeah.
was like concerned other people
I'm
would.
sure there is. I'm sure there's people out there that are just literally throwing them out there.
Waiting for somebody to answer it, and then they're going to do it faster.
Yeah,
I see.
exactly. Yeah.
Quick comments on this. I'm going to brag, but first I won't brag. I'll talk about something else. I went looking for it, and I went to the App Store, and I searched Wordle. I found an app called
did the
Wordle, and I
same
downloaded
thing,
it. And the takeaway I had from that was, man, in 2022, and for years now, that kind of opportunistic ability to move quickly, man, it can really pay. Meaning if that Wordle company had found a way to sell ads and get it up there really quick, maybe it was just serendipitous, but I assumed once I realized, this isn't the app. Because I'm like, this doesn't look like what everyone else is showing on Twitter. What the heck? I got the wrong thing. And I went and searched again. But then I went, wow. I assume that someone realized people are going to go look in the App Store for this. I'm going to build it up,
That was the first thing I did too.
Really smart.
You're really smart.
I played it one time, that real Wordle game.
Right.
I got it in 2 guesses. So the word was solar, and I just guessed roast because R-S-T-A. Just the first word that came to my mind had a lot of common letters. And then, I think I had 1 green, so I had the O in the right place because roast and solar, and then I had like 3 other letters.
Yep.
So I got it, and I'm like, I'm never going to play this again. This is the best I'm ever going to do. Posted it to Twitter, and I'm like, I'm out, baby.
Yeah, and you'd be surprised. You'd be surprised how many articles there are out there about like the perfect strategy and how to accomplish it. Like my strategy is simply I just come up with a 5-letter word where every letter is different, and then because I think typically it is every letter is different. Like, maybe they do repetitive ones. I've yet to come across one with repetitive letters, and then I'll do my even if I get unless I get like a lot of like in the right place to easily guess it. As long as I get a couple letters that are telling me they're in the word, I will do another word with completely different letters for the second line with the idea of, hey, I'm going to get even more information this second time and potentially end with at least 2 to 4 letters that are definitely in the word and then start making like legit guesses from there that include those letters. But again, everybody's got different strategies. It's super simplistic. It's not hard. It really isn't. If you know words, it's not that hard.
And it's all about the flex on Twitter.
Yeah,
putting your little grid.
exactly. And cheating would just be dumb anyway. Like, what's the point? Like, just it's a mindless game. There's nothing to gain out of it other than just a little bragging rights maybe with your friends. But
Gotcha.
check it out. Wordle. Just Google it. I think it's something like powersomething.uk/Wordle. The guy who actually created it, his name is Jeff Wardle. He just changed that to Wordle to kind of good branding on his part.
Nice.
All right, that does it for us. That's what's tech connecting with us. Hey, until next time, go out and woo some of your mobilizers.
There you go.
Take them out to dinner. Buy them a box of chocolates. Give them some flowers. Tell them
Educate them.
Tell them how pretty they look. Maybe I don't know. Maybe don't get that creepy. Maybe just give them some good information that they can use. And of course, as always, until next time, stay connected. TEConnect podcast is brought to you by ELO. Built with versatility in mind, ELO's Edge Connect offers a wide assortment of peripheral options for your digital display. Whether for endless aisle, self-order, or collaboration, you can seamlessly attach up to 4 peripherals to the touchscreen Edge with flexibility to add, remove, or change later as needed. Temperature sensors, status lights, 3D or conference cameras, barcode scanners, card readers, collaboration tools, payment cradles. If you can't find peripherals to meet any customer need, you just start trying. To learn more, check out the link in the show notes or contact your BlueStar account manager. TEConnect Podcast is also brought to you by Zebra. The DS3600KD is the latest addition to Zebra's line of ultra-rugged barcode scanners that define the market, establishing new standards for rugged design, scanning performance, and manageability. Warehouses, retailers, and manufacturers face unrelenting pressure to deliver more and to do it faster and more accurately. Help customers meet that challenge with the DS3600KD ultra-rugged scanner with keypad and color display. Built for the toughest environments, the DS3600 is virtually indestructible with an enhanced 10-foot drop spec to concrete, 7,500 tumbles, and a dual IP65, IP68 sealing. The device reads barcodes in any condition, whether they are in hand or as far as 7 feet away. To learn more, check out the link in the show notes.